Stuck as a woman in a foreign country. A romance novel. Chapter 1. Joe stumbled through the vibrant foreign streets, the taste of adventure on his lips. He was on holiday, away from his mundane life, seeking a taste of something different. The night beckoned with promises of excitement, and Joe was determined to heed its call. The air was thick with laughter and music as he stumbled upon a lively bar. Liquid courage flowed freely into his glass, numbing his inhibitions and filling him with a newfound confidence. He downed shot after shot, feeling the warmth spread through his veins. In his blurry state, a woman appeared before him, her eyes shimmering like emeralds in the dimly lit room. Ellie, she had introduced herself as. Her laughter was infectious, captivating Joe as they danced the night away. Intoxicated by the sheer euphoria of the moment, Joe found himself following Ellie through the twisting maze of cobblestone streets. The city seemed to pulse with life around them, an unspoken connection forming between two souls. Ellie's apartment was a cozy enclave, a refuge from the noisy streets. Joe stumbled through the doorway, his world spinning on its axis. As they collapsed onto the couch in a fit of giggles, the room seemed to blur and reshape itself. Chapter 2. Back at Ellie's apartment, the air was heavy with anticipation. The flickering candlelight cast soft shadows on their faces, adding to the electric atmosphere. Their lips met, igniting a fire that burned brighter with each passing second. As their kisses grew more fervent, Ellie pulled away, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Joe, I dare you to cross-dress," she said, her words laced with playful intent. The alcohol fogged Joe's judgment, clouding his inhibitions. With a reckless smile, he agreed to Ellie's daring challenge. Together, they rummaged through her closet, finding a dress, wig, and makeup that would transform him into a woman. They laughed and stumbled as they helped Joe transform into Josephine, a vibrant and fearless version of himself. In the haze of the night, they reveled in their newfound freedom, embracing the unexpected twist of fate that had brought them together. As dawn painted streaks of pink across the sky, Joe and Ellie awoke, entangled in each other's arms. The remnants of their adventure still clung to them, both physically and emotionally. Joe's head throbbed with the remnants of alcohol, but his heart fluttered at the memories they had created. With a smile, Ellie turned to Joe and asked, "Do you want to go somewhere with me?" Nodding, Joe felt a surge of excitement, mixed with slight apprehension. They dressed in their normal clothes, bidding farewell to the alter ego Joe had briefly embraced. Yet, the fire within him still burned, fueled by the promise of the unknown. Ellie blindfolded Joe, the familiar darkness enveloping him once again. Guiding him gently, she led him to an unfamiliar destination. The sound of seagulls and the scent of salt water filled the air, hinting at the secret she had kept hidden from him. As the blindfold slipped away, Joe's eyes widened at the sight before him. A luxurious yacht stretched out in front, its gleaming white exterior contrasting against the azure waters. Chapter 3. As Joe stepped onto the luxurious yacht, he marveled at its grandeur. The deck gleamed under his feet, and the scent of the ocean filled the air. He couldn't help but feel a sense of adventure as he watched Ellie confidently navigate her way to the bar. They settled into comfortable chairs, and Ellie ordered a round of drinks. The clinking of glasses filled the air as they toasted to their unexpected escapade. With every sip, Joe felt the warmth of the alcohol seep through his veins, his inhibitions loosening. The sun blazed high in the sky, casting a golden glow upon the endless expanse of water. Laughter echoed as they shared stories, their voices carrying with the wind. The day seemed to slip away as they drank and reveled in each other's company. As the drinks flowed, Ellie turned to Joe and smiled. Her eyes sparkled with mischief, and she raised an eyebrow questioningly. "Want to explore more of the yacht, Joe? There's a hidden room I think you'll enjoy." Joe's head spun slightly from the alcohol, but he knew he shouldn't get carried away. "Thanks, Ellie, but I really have to catch my flight back tomorrow. Maybe another time." He could see a hint of disappointment flicker across her face, but she quickly masked it with a shrug. "No worries," Ellie replied, her voice tinged with understanding. "There's still plenty to see and experience right here." She motioned to the vastness of the yacht, emphasizing the adventure that still awaited them. But just as Joe was about to suggest heading back to shore, he realized something was amiss. Panic prickled at the back of his mind as he saw Ellie flipping switches and pressing buttons at the ship's controls. "Ellie, what are you doing?" Joe asked, his voice a mix of confusion and concern. She turned towards him, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Surprise, Joe. We're going on a little sailing excursion." The engine roared to life, and before Joe knew it, they were already far from the safety of the shore. Dread churned in Joe's stomach as he realized the gravity of the situation. He was stuck on the yacht, with no control over his fate. His mind raced with thoughts of missed flights, unanswered phone calls, and the looming prospect of being trapped in a foreign country. As the waves rocked the yacht gently, Joe's heart pounded with uncertainty. He glanced at Ellie, who seemed oblivious to the panic that gripped him. How could he have let himself get tangled up in this whirlwind romance without considering the consequences? With each passing minute, the shore grew fainter, leaving Joe feeling adrift in a sea of uncertainty. The once exhilarating adventure had now become a daunting reality, and Joe couldn't help but wonder how he would find his way back to familiar shores. Chapter 4. Ellie offered him another drink, but Joe's anger burned within him as he stared at her, who was desperately trying to salvage the situation. How could she think that a few more drinks would solve everything? But as he glanced around, realizing he was stranded on this luxurious yacht with no other options, he reluctantly conceded. With a heavy sigh, Joe took a seat next to Ellie at the bar. The bartender poured them another round of drinks, the amber liquid swirling in their glasses. Joe stared into his, lost in his own thoughts. Could he truly forgive her for putting him in this predicament, for taking advantage of his vulnerability? Ellie touched his hand, her eyes pleading for understanding. Joe, I didn't mean to upset you. I thought it would be fun, a way for us to connect on a deeper level. But I understand if you're angry. Joe looked into her eyes, searching for sincerity. The alcohol coursing through his veins clouded his judgment, but there was a hint of remorse in Ellie's gaze that pulled at his heartstrings. After a few moments of contemplation, Joe let out a resigned sigh. All right, Ellie, I forgive you, but promise me you won't make any more impulsive decisions without considering the consequences. Ellie's face lit up with relief as she nodded. I promise, Joe. We'll find a way to make this right. Her words eased some of the tension that had gripped Joe's heart. Maybe, just maybe, he could salvage this bizarre situation and find a way back to his normal life. As the night wore on, and the drinks flowed freely, their laughter echoed across the deck. Joe's anger started to dissolve, replaced by a sense of camaraderie and an unexpected connection. It was as if the alcohol had the power to mend the rift between them, allowing them to find solace in each other's company. Joe glanced at Ellie, noticing her playful gaze lingering on him. What is it? He asked. A mischievous smile danced on Ellie's lips. Joe, would you cross-dress again? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the music. Joe hesitated. He knew he had already forgiven her, but taking that step again felt like surrendering to a situation he still didn't fully understand. Yes, he finally replied, surprising even himself. Ellie's excitement was contagious as she stood up, her steps unsteady in her heels. Her hands trembled a little as she helped Joe undress, her touch unexpectedly gentle. However, this time, she took it a step further. She handed Joe a pair of pantyhose, guiding him to put them on, and then added padding around his chest, transforming his form into that of a convincing girl. Joe watched himself transform in the mirror, his reflection a stranger in a long red gown and heels. As the night progressed, their inhibitions diminished with each sip of alcohol. They danced under the moonlit sky, promising each other a future filled with adventure and discovery. Joe forgot, even if only for a moment, that he was trapped as a woman in a foreign country. The bond they shared now was deeper than anything he had experienced before, a connection forged in the crucible of their shared secrets. The night stretched on, filled with laughter, stolen glances, and whispered promises. And as the sun began to rise, painting the horizon in shades of pink and gold, Joe and Ellie stood on the deck, their bodies swaying to an unheard melody. This was their moment, a chapter in their story that defied logic and reason. And in that moment, Joe's heart yearned for just one more dance, one more stolen kiss, before the sun claimed the sky and reality encased them once more. Chapter 5. When Joe woke up the next morning, he noticed something peculiar. His usual clothes, the ones he arrived in this foreign country with, were nowhere to be found. Confused, he turned to Ellie. Ellie, where are my clothes? He asked, his voice tinged with frustration. Ellie turned to him with a mischievous smile playing on her lips. Oh, Joe, you won't be needing them anymore, she replied, her eyes twinkling with a hint of mystery. A surge of anger welled up inside Joe, but he couldn't quite find the words to express it. Instead, he let out a long, exasperated sigh. He stared down at himself, still clad in the attire Ellie had chosen for him the night before. To his surprise, he found himself not entirely hating it. The vibrant colors and flowing fabric felt strangely liberating, as if they allowed him to shed the constraints of his old self. Joe shuffled towards the door, his curiosity piqued as they approached the shore. He needed to know where they were heading. Stepping outside, Joe's eyes widened at the sight before him. The yacht was now docked, and the unfamiliar surroundings revealed a bustling city. Unsure of which direction to go, he turned to Ellie once again. Ellie, "Where are we?" he asked, hoping for a straightforward answer. Ellie's eyes sparkled with amusement as she simply grinned at him, keeping the mystery intact. Joe felt a mix of frustration and intrigue. He wanted to be angry at Ellie for all the secrecy and surprises, but a part of him couldn't deny the excitement that came with the unknown. As they strolled through the streets together, Joe couldn't help but notice the curious glances from passers-by. Some looked baffled, while others smiled in approval. Though Joe's initial discomfort gnawed at him, he couldn't ignore a growing sense of confidence that came with this new attire. With each step, Joe's perspective began to shift. He realized that being stuck as a woman in a foreign country wasn't a curse, but an opportunity for growth, understanding, and self-discovery. And while he didn't know what this journey would bring, he decided to embrace it wholeheartedly. As they continued exploring, the city revealed its hidden charms, vibrant markets, lively cafes, and streets adorned with breathtaking architecture. Joe's initial anger slowly melted away, replaced by a sense of awe and gratitude for the unexpected experiences Ellie had shown him. The sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow over the city. Joe and Ellie found themselves sitting on a park bench, watching as the last rays of light danced upon the water. Joe turned to Ellie, a newfound appreciation in his eyes. "Thank you," he finally said, his voice filled with sincerity. Ellie smiled, her gaze filled with understanding. "You're welcome, Joe. Sometimes, it takes losing a piece of ourselves to find something even greater." Chapter 6. Joe gazed at Ellie, his heart racing as he awaited her response. He desperately longed to return to his old life, to go back to the familiarity of his own clothes and his own identity. But as Ellie met his gaze with unwavering determination, he realized that his hopes were futile. "Joe," she began softly, her voice filled with sincerity, "I can't promise that I know how to get you back to your previous life. This is a journey we're on together now." His heart sank, the weight of the realization pressing upon him. He was trapped, unable to escape the confines of this foreign country and the new existence he found himself thrust into. Joe glanced around, still uncertain of where he was, and the fear began to consume him. Yet, in that moment, Ellie's unwavering love gave him a sliver of hope. Taking his hand, she led him through the grand estate that would now be their home. The sprawling land stretched out before Joe's eyes, promising a life of uncharted adventures. He couldn't deny the beauty of the surroundings, even if they were unfamiliar. As they entered their new bedroom, Joe couldn't help but notice the bright shade of pink adorning the walls, the delicate frills of the curtains. It was a room he never imagined occupying, filled with a wardrobe that showcased dresses and skirts, none of which he had ever worn before. Uncertainty lingered, but so did a sense of curiosity. That night, they ventured into the town center to a luxury restaurant. Joe's apprehension subsided momentarily as they dined on exquisite cuisine, laughter and conversation flowing effortlessly between them. They were a couple with a story that defied convention, and Joe couldn't help but be captivated by the possibilities that lay ahead. Returning to their new home, they lost themselves in each other's embrace. Passion ignited, their bodies entwined, their souls intertwined. In that moment of raw intimacy, Joe's reservations began to fade, replaced by a profound sense of surrender and acceptance. As they lay together, Joe held Ellie in his arms, his thoughts swirling. Did he truly desire to return to his old life, with all its familiar but unfulfilling trappings? Or was this unexpected journey, with all its uncertainties and challenges, leading him towards something greater? In the end, Joe realized that his old life was just a facade, a comfortable existence built upon society's expectations. With Ellie, he had discovered a love that transcended boundaries, a love that dared to color outside the lines. And as the first rays of dawn peeked through the window, illuminating their intertwined bodies, Joe knew that this was his new beginning.